making complex quilt blocks is way too hard? Well, think again, my quilting compadre. In this video, I'm going to share with you 5 tools that I use to make my quilting life so much more easier so that I can make beautiful blocks like this. Stay tuned and I'll show you what tools I'm using. Hi, my name is Tammy. I'm a human. Thanks for spending time with me. Now let's get into it. Tip number 1 is to use the AccuQuilt cutting system. In this video, I'm using the Go Big, but you can also use the Go Me to achieve the same results. I'm using the Go Cube Mix and Match set, the 9-inch, and I'm also using the Angles companion set to cut out the elements for this block. I'm fan folding the fabric. You can cut up to 6 layers of quilting cotton with one pass using the AccuQuilt Go Big and also the Go Me. Once your cutting sandwich has come out on the other side, remember to slide, don't lift your mat, and then voila, there you are, perfectly cut pieces. I like to pre-cut and pre-starch my fabric. That way I can get maximum usage of the yardage as well as have some nice firm pieces to sew. I also like to flip the mat backwards and forwards when I put it through the cutter. That way I can increase the life of the mat. Cutting the elements for this quilt block is so easy with the AccuQuilt cutting system. I've cut out all the elements for this block with a few passes through the cutter. When I make a complex quilt block, I make a sample section first, and then I use a design board to place that sample on, and then I take my pieces and I align it like the sample so that I make sure I sew it correctly. Tool number 2 is using a proper 1/4-inch foot that fits your machine. It is so imperative that you make sure you master the 1/4-inch seam, because without doing that, your quilt blocks will come out wonky. Here you see my 1/4-inch seam. I place it on the design board, and as you can see, it looks pretty good for a 75-year-old sewing machine. I like to press my seams open. So first I set the seam by pressing it flat on the die board, and then I fillet it open, as you can see there, and I'm comparing it to my sample to make sure that I've sewn it correctly. If not, I'll go ahead and use the seam ripper to undo the seam and redo it. What you can see here is me sewing the second side of this kite shape using the corner square triangle. Both corner square triangles have been sewn to the kite shape, and again, I like to press my seams open at this phase, so you can see me here pressing them open. Now, this is tool number 3 and tool number 4. Tool number 3 is the steam fast iron, and tool number 4 is the clapper. The clapper makes your seams lie flat, and look how beautiful those are. When you're sewing multiple units, you can do what's called chain piecing, and that's basically sewing the same 2 pieces of fabric together that are multiples back to back to back. And that way, it makes your quilting much faster, more efficient as far as thread usage is concerned, and it just makes it a lot more fun. Tool number 5 is to use the Blade Saver thread cutter. Once you're done chain piecing your units together, as you can see here, you just slip your pieces of thread through this cutter and voila, it easily cuts the threads. To repeat, tool number 3 is to use the steam fast iron, which you see me using right there. I don't have any water in it, and so it's a dry iron. And tool number 4 was to use a clapper. The clapper holds your seams open once you're done pressing. What you see here now are all 4 components to this block, and I'm going to show you how I line up my seams. What I do is just make sure before I sew my 1/4-inch seam that the 2 seams are lined up at the joint area. I use a pen to make sure I keep those seams stabilized. They're nicely nested there. And as you can see, again, tool number 2, use your 1/4-inch foot. And then as you can see there, it is going very nicely through. The seams are nested and they're staying aligned. I use my 1/4-inch foot, the steam fast iron without water, and the clapper to achieve these nicely nested seams. As I feed this sandwich through the machine, you can see I stop right there to make sure everything remains in alignment, and then I finish up sewing that 1/4 inch seam. I'm using the Blade Saver thread cutter to easily cut these chain pieced units apart, and look how wonderful it came out. Once I get to this point, I like to press my seams to a side because there's a lot of bulk, and pressing them open will just add unnecessary work. Look how good those points look, you guys. I'm using the steam fast iron and the clapper to flatten out the bulk in the seam. This block is comprised of 4 units. Let me show you how I assemble these units and sew them together to complete the block. There's a lot of bulk at this point in the process, so I like to use a pen to make sure that my seams stay nested and I can maintain my points. Luigi and I, yes, I name all of my sewing machines, and this one's name is Luigi, are gonna show you how we sew these pieces together. So I'm using my 1/4 inch foot, and I also have placed a pin in a strategic area on this sandwich so that I can make sure the pieces don't shift. Right when I get to the junction there, I stop and I make sure that all the pieces are still in alignment, and I go ahead and finish sewing my 1/4 inch seam. Luigi and I are going to show you once again how we sew this together. Now, as you can see, I'm really shimmying around to make sure that as I start sewing the unit together, that the seams are in alignment, and this helps keep my points intact at the end of the process. I'm going to use the handy dandy Blade Saver thread cutter again to cut the pieces of this quilt block. As you can see here, because I used my 1/4 inch foot, the seam here looks very good, and you can see that the points are lined up. I'm finger pressing to one side, and now I will go to the ironing board and use the steam fast iron to press that seam to one side. Just checking to make sure everything looks good. Steam fast iron, no water, dry iron, and there's the clapper, and ta-da, nicely pressed open seam. Let me show you how I piece together the halves of the quilt block. So that's 2/4 sewn together to equal half. What I do here is I flip it over, and I'm gonna sew a 1/4 inch seam in that location. Just kind of looking to make sure that my seams are nested. I'm going over to Luigi, again, using my 1/4 inch foot. I'm beginning to sew my seam, and when I get to junctions where there's bulk in the seam and the seam is pressed open, I just kind of look on the back side of the unit just to make sure things are staying in alignment, and if it is not in alignment, I just shimmy it over a little. With quilting cotton, you do have a little wiggle room that you can stretch. Try not to stretch it too much because you will distort your block, but a little bit is okay. So as you can see there, I just pointed out that those points are in the proper position. Now they are going through the needle and the 1/4 inch foot and the throat plate to complete the construction of this block. Now I'm going to show you the big reveal. Wait for it, wait for it. Ta-da! Look at that block. Look at those seams. They're nested. My points look good. Again, using that 1/4 inch foot, the steam fast iron and the clapper is what allowed me to get these amazing results. Here's the back of the block. What I'm going to do now is, because of the bulk in this block, I'm going to press to one side. So you'll see me now doing that process. We are in the home stretch. We're back at the ironing pad. I'm going to use my steam fast iron. Again, no water, just dry iron. I'm pressing to one side. There's a lot of bulk there, and I'm making sure that I press it pretty good because this is the final press. Once that's complete, I am going to use my handy dandy clapper, and I just sit it there for, as you can see, 1001, 1002, 3 seconds. I remove it, and guys, look at this. Ta-da! Look at how beautiful this block is. Now, it looks very complicated, but it's not. Using the AccuQuilt cutting system, using your 1/4 inch foot, using the clapper, using the steam fast iron, and last but not least, using that blade saver thread cutter. And look how beautiful that is. There you have it. 5 tools that you can include into your quilting routine that will make your life so much more easier. But wait, there's more. Watch this next video and you will learn more tips and techniques to improve your quilting success.